In the future, gasoline prices have skyrocketed. A single gallon is $75. The tax on gasoline has also increased by over 400%. This has led the world to transition to electric vehicles, but such energy requirements may not be feasible. Luckily, in the year 2036, a new dimension known as Dimension W was discovered to exist, which unlocked the creation of an interdimensional device known as the coils. These coils are now used for extracting an unlimited amount of energy that exists in Dimension W. This is done through giant towers known as the stabilizers. About 60 of them exist around the world. However, Dr. Shido Yurizaki, its inventor and the former CEO of the company New Tesla Energy, has completely gone off the radar. This company, with the help of governments around the world, has created a world system, which provides energy to the entire world population. Kyoma Mabuchi, our main character, is working on a gasoline car when he gets a call from Mary. She tells him to meet her at 9 p.m. He happens to be a collector for Mary's house, a recovery house disguised as a pub. A collector's job is to confiscate or collect illegal coils from people. Meanwhile, Mira Yurizaki, an android, is running errands. Mira brings back some medicine and other supplies to her home safely for her ailing father, who happens to be none other than Dr. Shido Yurizaki. Kyoma goes to Mary's house. Mary, the lady in charge, shows him his next assignment on a screen. Two brothers, Joni1 and Everyone, have been using illegal coils. Before leaving for his assignment, Kyoma requests his payment to be given half in gasoline and half in cash. He despises the new coil's energy system, but ironically has to work for them to make a living. Meanwhile, Mira is out of tap water. She goes to buy some from a convenience store but spots a gang dealing with coils in one of the buildings. Joni has a whole bunch of illegal coils. He is busy showing them off to the rest when the Everyone bursts the door open and throws an unconscious Mira on the couch. They start calling dibs on her, but Kyoma interrupts them. He is quick to point out that he isn't there for the girl but rather for the illegal coils and introduces himself as a collector. They get ready to fight him. The face-off begins. Kyoma attacks them with skewers, needle-like knives. One goes right through Joni1's hand. He starts screaming in pain. The rest of the gang members surround Kyoma. However, he effortlessly takes them down one after the other. Mira also gains back her consciousness and is taken aback by her encounter with humans. Everyone gets knocked out. Joni1 resolves to threaten Kyoma about killing the girl, but he remains unbothered and nonchalantly gives Joni the green signal to blow her brains out, because if saving her isn't part of the mission, then it doesn't matter if she dies. This puts Joni under pressure, and he starts cursing profusely. Mira can't bring herself to just stand there helplessly. She picks him up and throws him along with the couch across the room. The men realize that she isn't even a human to begin with. Mira briskly walks up to Kyoma and slaps him hard across the face for leaving her like that. He kind of deserved it though. The slap makes him black out. He wakes up to Albert Schumann, the chief investigator of New Tesla Energy's Dimension Administration Investigation Bureau, asking him what kind of creature he had to deal with to knock him unconscious. Kyoma answers back by questioning his presence. The man informs him that he has recently been appointed as Chi's chief investigator. Chi is an elite research troupe of the Bureau. He wants Kyoma to work for him, but the latter's hatred for the coils makes him reject the offer. Later, Kyoma has to give Mary the unpleasant news of failing to retrieve the illegal coils. She starts yelling at him from the other side, but Kyoma reasons that once the Dimension Administration Bureau, or the DAB, gets involved, there's nothing he can do. He is then reminded of Mira's tears and asks Mary if robots have been upgraded to shedding tears these days. But with such an out-of-pocket question, Kyoma drops the subject and cuts the call without explaining any further. Mira is running away with the illegal coils when Kyoma blocks her path. He accuses her of planning to steal the coils from the very beginning and putting on an act to fool everyone with her fake emotions. She tries to explain herself, but he starts throwing skewers at her. Meanwhile, Albert and his men have traced down the professor. He climbs out of the window barefoot. Albert's aim is to take him into custody along with his research. The former informs him that the company wants to reconcile with him. Upon hearing this, the professor angrily bursts out that they had barged into his place, killed his wife and daughter, and left with the research papers. He holds up a giant coil connected to wires. Mira senses it from afar. She desperately asks Kyoma to release her, but the man refuses, not understanding the severity of the situation, thinking that she is probably playing another mind game on him. Just then, a large green beam lights up the sky, grabbing their attention. It is coming from the coil Shido is holding up. The men's earpieces, Kyoma's cell phone, and even Mira's collar start short-circuiting. she receives a powerful electric shock. The professor communicates to her that the rest is in her hands. The coil extracts all the energy from the surroundings. It bursts, causing an explosion and a gigantic shockwave which eradicates the buildings nearby. The professor disappears. Mira's coil burns out, making her unconscious. Kyoma picks her up to make some cash. He takes her to Kurogi, a technician at Mary's house. He is fascinated with Mira's design and complex functions. The technician laughs at Kyoma's stupidity for wanting to make some cash off her parts, because it would be obvious enough that a collector can't make or take something so sophisticated and expensive. He compares her construction to that of a man-made satellite. Kurogi goes into further details, such as the main outer body of Mira being similar to that of Mary's android named 4. However, the complexity lies underneath the upper layer. Mira has an extremely thin layer of silicon foam, a self-repair function, and coils on her chest, with the help of which all the other functions activate. She is designed so perfectly seamless that it is obvious the professor has created her. Kurogi presses the coil and she opens her eyes. Upon seeing her state of appearance, she starts freaking out and slaps Kyoma. Mary inquires about a way to meet Dr. Shidu, but as soon as she hears his name, she kneels on the floor asking them to let her join them. Later, Mira and Kyoma go to watch the mysterious masked man named Loser at the art museum. His fans can be seen wearing his masks as they cheer him on. Mira picks up a newspaper, which explains that he is known as Loser because he hasn't been successful in stealing any artwork. The man, before making any heists, broadcasts them first by hijacking communication devices. He has gained quite the following with his antics. So much so that people have come out to watch him. Kyoma's aim, however, is to capture the man with the help of the police because his hijacking devices are very powerful yet illegal, which means that they possess illegal coils. Kyoma thinks back to when Mira had told him that the processor had said if she saw a green pillar of light in the sky, then that would mean his demise had occurred. She had knelt down in front of them, asking them to let her capture the illegal coils because that was what her father had wanted her to do. They had asked her about Dr. Shidu's wife, Seira Yuruzaki, Mira's inventor. The robot had played the last clip captured as she was murdered. This took everyone by surprise because first of all, Mira had accessed their computer system so easily, and then something so secretive got revealed by her without knowing the damage it might have caused. Mary then and there forbade her from revealing that information to anyone ever again. She had accepted the robot to work for her, but under Kyoma's supervision, and that is how they ended up becoming partners. The coils, hating Kyoma, teamed up with a coiled robot. Loser emerge on the screen. Kyoma knows that the hijacking devices usually lie 2 meters away and instructs Mira to find them, without giving further details, leaving behind a clueless Mira. Kyoma quickly catches up to Loser. The latter asks for information on him from his adoptive daughter, Elizabeth, disguised as a boy. They learn that Kyoma is a collector, yet he doesn't possess a single coil. Loser makes it through the front gate of the museum with Kyoma right behind him. Is this going to be a cat and mouse chase? Elizabeth keeps guiding Loser through any blocked doors for a smooth heist. The museum has guard robots that attack them with laser beams. The men have no choice but to fight together. Kyoma asks him to hand over his devices, but the man refuses, saying there's a whole lot of show remaining. People are literally watching them on a big screen. They get even more engrossed when they see Kyoma on the screen as well. Mira sees the whole ordeal and decides to hurry up with finding the devices. She starts scanning the area, but with no luck because of the jammers. She critically thinks of a solution and figures out that she needs to move further away from the jammers to a higher ground for her scanning to work. Meanwhile, the men are still fighting the robots. Loser praises his psychical strength because Kyoma uses no coils. Kyoma asks about his identity, but the man runs away. Loser starts giving Kyoma a whole info page on him. He knows that Kyoma was in a legendary unit called Grendel during the war. However, the unit disappeared shortly after the end of war, but Loser claims that he knows the real reason behind it because that is how New Tesla works. They hide accidents associated with coils from the public. Loser removes his mask, showing half of his face gone. His aim finally comes to light when he confesses that he had lost his arms, legs, and most importantly, his beloved wife. He wants to avenge her death no matter what. Just then, the police show up. Loser escapes with a smoke bomb. Now the question remains, what does avenging his wife's death have to do with stealing artwork? Loser finally reaches a statue which has a key coil inside called Numbers. However, his path gets blocked by the curator of that museum and his twin robots. He cuts off any further broadcasting of the heist. Loser points out that from the glow of the coils inside them, it's obvious that they are illegal. Kyoma joins the party as well. The curator starts freaking out and orders his robots to finish off Kyoma. As soon as they jump to attack him, he binds their legs. They pull him towards themselves, He gladly goes with the pull and smashes their coils with skewers, shutting them down. The curator falls to the ground in despair. Loser takes this opportunity to take out the numbers inside the statue. Kyoma questions if he is after these numbers. The police start banging on the door, which makes the curator anxious about them finding out that he has been using illegal coils. He tries to disconnect the robots, but Kyoma warns him to stop. The robots turn on, with their coils glowing red. The scene cuts to Elizabeth trying to get a hold of Loser's communication devices when the radar shows them all bunched up together. Mira comes out of the shadow holding them. Elizabeth had cleverly disguised the coils as pigeons. Inside the museum, a dimensional collapse is about to take place. Loser takes the numbers and escapes. Kyoma, on the other hand, tries to get the curator out of there, but the robots grab the latter's leg and start dragging him inside the dimension. He has no choice but to let them take him. They split the man in half, and a large explosion is heard outside. Loser goes back to Elizabeth while Kyoma is still inside looking at the horrifying dimensional damage. The curator has been materialized. The Day B takes over from there. Albert and Kyoma cross paths again. Albert calls this sort of damage a Class C accident. But because of the severity of it and to keep up with the image of new Tesla, this accident will not be revealed to the public. Mira brings back the illegal coils to Mary's house. She's impressed that Mira has managed to get them all and pays her 6 million yen in cash, but reminds the robot that she needs to keep her true identity hidden, or else they will all be in trouble. In the car, Mira proposes the idea of renting some of Kyoma's place. He looks skeptical because surely a robot won't need to function like a human. However, she informs him that the nanomachines inside her body work like blood cells, and to maintain their functional regularity, she needs to follow a proper sleep cycle, which obviously means that she needs a bed to sleep. Kyoma takes her to a tiny one-room capsule cabin. She has already bought it without even looking inside it. He hands her the key. On entering it, it's safe to say that she loves her new, humble abode. Once the excitement wears off, she realizes that there's no bathroom, so she ends up using the one inside Kyoma's house, and they eventually have an awkward encounter where he accidentally opens the door on her. Apparently she needs to use the toilet too. Mira ends up buying furniture for her tiny place. The kids seem to be spying on her, when Kyoma comes out to inform her that they are probably after the car that runs on gasoline, because these days those things are mostly found in museums. She is caught up to his hatred for coils because she's noticed none of the products around his place are powered by them. She notices the kids messing with the cars when one of them gets stuck inside it and is about to get crushed. She dashes to save them. Meanwhile, Kyoma has gone to meet a man asking him about numbers. The old man explains that before the towers were created to stabilize the coil's energy, scientists around the world were given coils to experiment with. People used to refer to them as beta coils or micro gates. These days, though, they are known by the name of numbers due to their appearance. However, they are considered top secret. Kyoma asks how they are any different from the common coils. The man tells him that these numbers can independently generate energy from the depths of Dimension W. Kyoma goes back home, only to be greeted by police and taken to the station for questions regarding leaving kids unsupervised at his place. When he finally gets back to his place, he is met with the sight of the robot holding her head in her lap. She explains that it came off as she hurled the kids away from the crashing cars, but they had to unfortunately witness the horrifying scene of her head getting severed during it. Kyoma rings up Mary to get Kurogi to fix the robot and thanks her for bailing him out, but she informs him that it wasn't her but the COO, Claire Skyheart, of New Tesla Central 47. In the morning, Kyoma goes over to Central 47. A robot takes him to Claire Skyheart. He questions why she had to get involved in getting him out of the police station when the little girl who usually sneaks around his place runs up to Claire, calling her grandma. Well, that answers his question. The little girl happens to be her granddaughter, Shiora Skyheart. Claire says that she wanted to meet the Beast of Grendel. Upon hearing that title used for him, Kyoma gets irritated and quickly takes his leave, but before he exits, Shiora whispers in his ear that she hasn't told Claire about Mira being a robot. Claire summons Albert. He informs her that there is neither any trace of the professor nor anything in his surroundings. The man had created a sort of small black hole that night. The double coil which he was using has never been seen before by Albert. In the village Yasugami at 10:28 p.m, a man gets murdered in his house by his robot. Mira and Kyoma are heading there in the dark of the night. The robot has heard rumors of ghost sightings due to an incident that took place 21 years ago. She sees a woman on the road and yells for him to halt the car, though no one seems to be there besides them. Kyoma gets irritated with her because there is no log entry made for her to make him believe. They get back in the car. A woman stands watching the car speed away. 24 hours earlier, Kyoma sees Albert walk into Mary's house and decides to leave. But Mary stops him, sternly tells him to sit back down. Albert quickly starts explaining the assignment to him. He tells Kyoma that a novelist named Shijuro Sakaki died a week ago in his study, which was also a hotel room, the cause of death being drowning. However, he had no one with him at the time of his death, besides his housekeeping robot. The dispenser in the room was empty though. Albert points out that for a robot to murder someone, there needs to be an illegal coil involved, which should neither get suspended nor can send any reports. He shows Kyoma the video log on the robot on the night of Shijuro's death. The man asks for water as he sits on his PC. The robot brings it for him, but as he turns around to take it, he starts freaking out, like he has seen a ghost. The video lags but then returns after 2 minutes, showing the maid watching a dead Shijuro in horror. Albert wants Kyoma to go investigate what had interfered in the video that night and retrieve it if possible. Kyoma questions why he has to be chosen for this job. Albert tells him that there are ghosts involved. Mary reminds Kyoma that he needs to take the job. It's not like he has a say in it. Back to present. The duo arrives at the mansion. Kyoma reminds her not to act like a literal robot because the house is a hotel as well, and guests are probably staying. They get introduced by the hotel manager Makita to Shijuro's younger sister, Marisa Sakaki. A man named Hagiyama rudely walks up to them, announcing that the staff didn't refill his water on time, and laughs off Shijuro's death like some sort of a joke, telling Kyoma that he will soon get cursed like the police if he stays here any longer. Makita informs them that he is a journalist currently writing Shijuro's memoir. As soon as the journalist leaves, Elizabeth trots down the stairs, telling them that it's rude to investigate someone without their permission, and walks away. Makita takes Kyoma and Mira to the hotel room they are going to be staying in. Guess who's also there and claims to be vacationing? Albert himself. He knows that Kyoma had gone to collect information on numbers. Kyoma gets irritated with him and starts fighting. Albert keeps dodging until Kyoma gives him a nice big punch on the nose and literally kicks him off of the 3rd floor balcony. Mira hurriedly goes to check if the man is still alive, but he safely lands, telling Kyoma to meet him at 9 p.m. for a drink. Turns out, he is also a beast of Grendel. In the morning, the duo goes to Shijuro's study for a thorough investigation. He instructs Mira to start with scanning the books first for any clues. Kyoma leaves to investigate the surroundings. He pays a visit to the graves of those who lost their lives during the construction of the dam. He then goes to Yasogami Dam, then the dam's administrative office, but it's locked, and then heads back to the hotel. At night, when the mist and fog sets in, the journalist runs for his life from the ghost of a woman. She drowns him in water, underneath a bloody moonlit sky. At night, inside the lounge bar, Kyoma meets Albert and tells him about his findings. He shares that during the construction site incident, only one person was a worker, while the rest were students who had brought a coil with them. Since there were no towers 21 years ago then, that meant the kids had a number which obviously possessed powers unknown to them. Albert clears up some information. He shows Kyoma pictures of a physics professor, Kenjiro Kuroda, who had borrowed number 189 for his lab, which a student, Haruna Enamori, brought on the trip to Yasogami village. Series of events happened which led to an accident involving the numbers. Long story short, her body was never recovered because an apparition kept on killing search party members. Now that Shijuro is dead, the case is opened again. Meanwhile, Mira encounters a ghost. The room looks different and everything outside the balcony looks like it's being washed away. The ghost's right arm has been wounded by barbed wire. Mira can't move her body. At the bar, Kurogi sends them a hologram of what the novelist's robot had last logged. The data was so much to absorb all at once that nothing seemed to have come up in the beginning, but Kurogi had managed to trace them down. It shows several people attacking Shijuro. They happen to be only masses with no actual physical body. One of them squeezes his throat so hard that he ends up dying. Kyoma asked Kurogi to identify them with the people from the accident, and they match. It clicks why Mira wasn't able to catch anything in her log data. Looks like the numbers had trapped the incident. Mira is still on the run from the ghost, but in the memories of the past. It seems like anyone that got close to recalling the incident would trigger the ghosts to appear, which is exactly what has happened to Mira. She is currently stuck in one of Shijuro's novels. Everyone else gets notified of the journalist's death in his van. The hotel's power shuts down. Kyoma hurries to get Mira. Meanwhile, some thugs staying at the hotel force Marisa to go back to sleep until they find the numbers, because her sleep somehow forms a pathway to the other world. One of them inserts a sort of sedative in her arm. Kyoma comes inside the room but gets attacked by another thug firing from outside. They escape on a flying disc with Marisa. Elizabeth releases her bat robots to follow them. On the other hand, in the past world, Mira is chained up. One of the men reveals himself to be Shiro Kamiki, who happens to be the dead novelist Shijiro Sakaki in the real world. What in the numbers is going on? Looks like his past self murdered his present self. Shiro tells Mira that he wants to protect this fake world, even if it means killing his real self. Back in the real world, Kyoma squares up to tons of ghosts. He is confident that they will show him the way to numbers. Well, he finds out soon enough that they aren't in the mood to cooperate. The only thing they are up for is murder. Kyoma and Albert figure out that they can use water against the ghosts. Mira is still bound to the chains. She starts telling herself that she is a robot. Whatever her senses are conveying to her is not real, but rather data that she has acquired from reading those novels. She uses her strength to break free from the chains. Her own logic is able to overcome the logic of the world she is trapped inside. Haruna Inamori comes out of the shadows. The other ghost woman starts freaking out. Back in the real world, Albert holds up a lighter to the smoke detector, which in turn makes the sprinklers turn on. The ghosts disappear from getting water sprayed on them. Maybe Shijiro already knew the trick and had sprinklers installed all over the hotel. Mira is finally able to snap out of the fake world and hurriedly informs Kyoma that she knows about the location of both Numbers and Marissa. Elizabeth is also about to go after the Numbers, but Loser tells her to retreat because 2 Grendel beasts would be a lot to deal with. Kyoma and Mira use a flying disc to get to the dam where the Numbers is located. On the way, Mira tells Kyoma that in the world created by Shiro inside Dimension W, he was able to save his friends from their fated death. 21 years ago, the students had built a device in Yasogami village to support the coil's energy flow. A journalist even came to cover the story of the coils. They wanted people to see its power. Shiro had gone to the dam to check out the weather. He overheard some group interfering by discharging the dam and hurried back to tell the rest. Rain started pouring down on the village. Inside a storage room, the journalist attempted to assault Haruno because that was his plan the whole time. He started choking her, but she got a grip on an axe and smashed it into his skull. Shiro comforts her and tells her to alarm the rest of the group about the dam's discharge. He then throws the body into a well. He kills the man in the administrative office and speeds away on his bike as the flooding starts. However, he sees his group still there on the rooftop and Haruno submerged into the water holding the coil. He has to choose between saving his life or staying back to die with them. The Numbers light up. Its power creates a fake world where he saves his friends and preserves Haruno's body. Back to the present day. Shiro's ghost is still there guarding the crystallized Haruno when Kyoma jumps into the opening, attacking him with a strong kick with the aid of some spring water. Shiro starts yelling at Mira to stop, but she smashes the crystal, explaining that the fake world is made up of Shiro's imagination and doesn't have anything to do with Haruno's memories. She is right, because after the crystal breaks, Haruno's body doesn't exist, only the numbers remain. He is left dumbfounded. She further explains that due to his grieving, he couldn't understand the fact that Marissa happened to be Haruno. The real Marissa had died 14 years ago in a car accident. Shijuro's ghost comes to tell the truth himself. He confesses that on that fateful day, he had gone to rescue Haruno from drowning. He did save her, but she ended up losing all her memories from the accident. He changed his name to Shijuro and left the village for a new beginning, but he had to come back because his sister was haunted by her nightmares. He consulted Professor Kuroda and was told that the coil and her dreams were connected. To set her free, she had to be taken away from the coil and the lake. Shiro is devastated. He had been living a lie. Mira informs him that he can probably see Haruno now that he knows what had actually happened. She appears from behind, and they warmly embrace each other with apologies and reassurance. Shiro finally tells them that they are going to put an end to the fake world created by the coil. They disappear into nothingness and the village goes back to normal as it detaches from the fake world. The next day, the duo leaves the village. Prince Salva Enna Tibesti, the COO of Central 60, has landed in Japan all the way from Africa. Meanwhile, Kyoma visits the grave of his deceased fiancée, Miyabi Azumaya. In Mary's house, upon her request, Kurogi is trying to look for the reason Mira was created, but he gives up because she is way too complex to understand, and her tale is a mystery on its own. On the other hand, Kyoma is minding his own business when he gets dragged into the drama of the runaway brother of the prince named Luai Ora Tibesti. Salva sends his guards after him, but Kyoma thinks that the man wants to harm him, so he uses his skewers, making the bike motionless. This gives Luai the time to hide from them, dragging Kyoma with him as well. The guard receives an electric shock from the prince for not finding the kid, and gives his assistant Lashiti the deadline to find him till nightfall. Kyoma ends up going with the kid to some festival where he tries to slip away without getting noticed. But Luai ends up breaking a fish pond for a vendor, and he has no choice but to save him. Kyoma brings him to a clothing store run by his dead fiance's sister, Tsubaki Azumaya, who is overprotective of him. She fixes him a fresh, happy coat. Tsubaki has been making these coats lightweight so that they don't get in the way of his fighting. She then tells him that he should forgive himself for her sister's death. It has already been 5 years, but Kyoma says that he has been using his memory loss of that fateful day as an excuse because he doesn't even remember what he has left behind. But he promises that it's about time he goes back to figure things out. Just then, Lashiti makes an entrance. She has come to collect Luai. Kyoma gives him a traditional Japanese fan as a parting gift. Kyoma has figured out the boy's body is artificial, perhaps a robot. Mira comes, informing Kyoma that Mary is angry with him for missing a meeting. They head back, but not before Tsubaki dresses her in a beautiful yukata, a women's traditional dress. Prince Salva orders Luai to give the biggest fireworks show. Luai slams open Mary's door and knocks out Four with a single punch, literally tearing him apart. Kurogi is mad. He keeps muttering curses while trying to fix Four. Mary is seething with anger. She promises to make them pay for what they did to Four. Kyoma is surprised at the damage because Four's armor is supposed to be military type. It could only mean that Luai has an illegal coil. Mary shows him the letter they left behind. It's addressed to all the collectors for a fight. Prince Salva even holds a meeting with Claire from Central 47 to tell her in advance about the war which he is about to start. Apparently, it's going to be a race that anyone can join. He has decided the place for it to be none other than Easter Island, the same one where Kyoma had fought as a beast of Grendel. He is given 7 days' time to reach there. Kyoma recalls meeting his fiancée Miyabi, a chance encounter or perhaps fate. She got stuck behind a van while trying to take a picture of a cat with an old camera given to her by her grandfather. He got her out, and they quickly became friends. He kept getting involved in beating up thugs. Her sister, Tsubaki, would lecture him about it, but she still approved of their relationship. One day, while they were at a park, Miyabi suddenly lost her balance and fell to the ground. The doctors declared it to be a disease of the bones. Kyoma couldn't take no for an answer when he was told by a doctor that she would receive prosthetic limbs that would use coils but not for the whole body. There was still a way though, however. He had to reach out to Dr. Seira Yorizaki. She had freshly received a sample from the lab. All that was left was to figure out how to connect it to the central nervous system of the human body. Kyoma luckily finds her in front of the Cybernetics Medical Symposium. Seira's guards are alarmed by the way he is running towards them. He gets tackled to the ground by Colin Keyes. Kyoma requests her to save Miyabi. Kyoma is taken to a room for investigation. Colin is impressed with his biodata. He informs the man that he has been recruiting men that are physically strong with great stamina, and Kyoma fits the profile. He wants to create a superhuman unit known as Grendel. Kyoma is about to reject the offer, but Colin continues to say that the unit's idea was proposed by Dr. Seira's husband, Dr. Shido Yorizaki. This means that by joining the unit, they can put his girlfriend's request for treatment as a test subject on the priority list. Kyoma gives her an engagement ring in the hospital bed, telling her that he wanted for them to get married. He is soon sent on a mission to clear out the facilities on Easter Island from any enemies occupying it. Miyabi's surgery is also happening on the same day. Coils makes Squad A carry out one last shield check. It will protect them as long as it doesn't take several hits at the same time. The team jumps out. The robots at the facility send an alert to the rest. Kyoma breaks its barriers with his coiled spin darts. He remembers everything going according to plan until it all went blank. He can't remember anything that happened afterwards. Kyoma recalls the feeling of losing Miyabi. He woke up in a hospital bed with Albert by his side, telling him that they did win the war, but only the two of them had survived it. He doesn't say anything further and leaves. A teary-eyed Tsubaki and a wounded Dr. Seira walk inside the room. Kyoma frantically runs to find Miyabi. She lays dead with a white cloth over her. He can't believe his eyes. Her head is severed. Dr. Seira apologetically explains that they had kept her body separate for safekeeping, but her head was lost when the coil went crazy. That was the day he had learned that coils could go berserk. Back to the present day, Mira communicates to Mary that Kyoma is willing to go to Easter Island. He fixes a new car for their journey. Meanwhile, New Tesla holds a meeting demanding Salva to give an explanation for choosing Easter Island. Salva says that he has recently found out that the island has become a nothingness of possibilities, because it has turned into an area with zero energy from Dimension W. Furthermore, a video 4 weeks prior shows an image of someone in one of the windows of the facility. He wants them to check out what is happening there. The president then questions why he had to choose collectors instead of the Chi troops that their company has. Salva bravely speaks up that the ones responsible for the deaths during the last war and the murder of the Yorizaki family were definitely from within the company. He doesn't want to deal with any hidden agenda. which is why he has decided on collectors to take part in it. He does indeed want New Tesla to manage everything from behind the screens. The president acknowledges his intentions being beneficial to the whole company and accepts his plans while ordering him to work alongside Chief 4. At night, Prince Salva has invited all the collectors taking part in the race. They include the Easteriver siblings, Harry and Debbie, Yuri Antonov from Central 3, the number 1 collector Jason Chrysler from America, then number 2 collector Hitman KK, also from America, and the tag team Scorpio, Cat Cassidy and Sancho's from Mexico. Salva explains that as they all know that coils don't work in the nothingness that the island has turned into, but there is a coil that has started to work there recently, and the energy of Dimension W on the island is slowly recovering. He wants them all to find that one coil. The reward happens to be $50 million. Everyone gets excited about it. The rule is simple. The first one to find it will win. He shows them the airship, which they will be boarding on. It happens to be the South American Key-4 Air Command ship Grodia, and its commanding officer is Cedric Morgan. Elizabeth and Loser also arrive. Loser scans the area but doesn't find Kyoma to be present. Meanwhile, Kyoma has asked Albert to fly them there. He's just glad that Kyoma is up for it. He chose to not board Prince Salva's ride because he wouldn't have been able to bring his car. Kyoma explains to Mira that since he doesn't use any coil, it's obvious that they are going to be slower than the rest. And the race is all about speed, so he needs his car to give him the extra boost. His only aim is to go to Ground Zero, where the new Tesla facilities are, because the biggest malfunction in history of coils has taken place over there. His plan is to take his car around the island's circumference in the terrain. Albert warns him to be careful because Mira's coil won't work in the nothingness. Meanwhile, the ship is about to enter the airspace of the island, which is guarded by an automated defense line. They happen to be giant towers installed by New Tesla to keep out anyone from entering. The ship has been issued a route to follow, or else the automated artillery towers will target them. 3 whirlpools appear just when they are about to land. To make matters worse, a gigantic sphere appears out of nowhere. It goes through the ship, electrocuting 2 of the men, skips past Cedric and moves towards Salva. The man recalls Dr. Yurizaki foreseeing a sphere with a will. The ship ends up crashing. Albert's plane, however, has made a smooth landing thanks to the clear sky. Mira sees a dead rat. Anything and everything living has been wiped out. Albert is unable to get in touch with Salva's ship. Knowing the man, he probably didn't turn around in that hell of a storm. The only thing to rely on is the eyes, which Mira is quite confident about being a robot. But Kyoma is quick to remind her that because of that reason, the island's nothingness will end up hindering her coil to function properly. We are taken back into the past. In Central Africa, Isla, in the city of Farah, a little Salva playing with a soccer ball is called to greet the king. He tells Salva that he wants the boy to be his son because he does have one. The king shows him Tower 60 under construction, which will end up being a symbol for the country. He further informs the little boy that they are able to progress quickly because the coils need a specific type of metal, and fortunately it is found in their country. The king later has a son he names Luai and tells Salva to support the boy in becoming king. Salva one day shares his dream with Luai. He wants to build a world where Luai can sit in it like a king. Back to the present. The collectors are busy taking out the people inside the sunken airship. The coil had started working before everyone on it lost their lives. Luai rescues Salva and Lashiti. However, their body temperature has started to drop pretty low from the encounter with the sphere. Now that his brother is not in the condition to pass orders, he takes over. Luai orders them that they still need to find the coil, but first they need to look for a warm place for the ones injured. Elizabeth asks her father if he knows what that sphere from earlier was. Loser might have an idea, but the truth lies in Ground Zero. First, they need to decide which route to take. He demonstrates by throwing down a flashlight and it suddenly disappears. He says that this is what nothingness is. Coils stop working and life freezes, so they need to be careful with which path they take. The collectors find a hut to take refuge in. They start wondering who will pay them their reward if anything happens to Salva. Luai plays a video which Salva had prepared in advance to answer all their queries. He explains that since this place has been consumed by nothingness, no one knows what it really means. Not even Dr. Yurizaki could fix it, so he's glad that they are here. They already know about their objective and the reward. Luai promises that he will be keeping an eye on everyone so that they neither steal the coil nor break it, and the money will be sent under the name of Tibesti family. The collectors start making their plans. Jason proposes that they should team up and split the money amongst themselves. They all reject the idea. On the TV, Salva warns them that in nothingness, things once still can become active due to new possibilities. However, their souls and memory will be broken due to the damage caused to the cells. He isn't even finished talking when a man from the basement comes alive, almost like a zombie. It looks like things have started to move. Just then, a robot cuts through the hut's roof. Luai sends his own robot after it, but the other robot has an energy shield which deflects the attack. Luai's robots toss it and send it hurling into the snow. The prince runs after it, and Jason runs after the prince to watch their fight, leaving Cassidy to tend to the sick. She isn't happy about it. Her eyes catch a glimpse of that sphere appearing again. She runs inside to see it hovering and starts firing at it. Just then, Lashiti's eyes open. She tells Cassidy to stay still, because the thing seems to be only interested in men. Say what now? Meanwhile, Kyoma and Mira are still on the road. They see two robots up ahead, same as the ones the rest of the collectors had encountered earlier. Kyoma has come prepared. He steps on the accelerator, makes a sharp turn, throws a flare and makes the car go around the robots. They are too blinded by the light to notice him. Mira, though, would have appreciated a bit of warning for that flash. She informs him that someone is having a fight just a kilometer ahead. No shocker, it's one of those robots again. This time it's after the collector sibling duo. Harry tries to go for its head with a freaking shovel of all things. The robot's energy shield blocks the intrusion. Mira comes to save Harry before he gets attacked. Kyoma then starts binding the robot. It gets completely trapped and falls to the ground. After Kyoma's incredible performance, Debbie is left starstruck. The coil inside is an old normal one. Kyoma makes Mira throw it away. Now they just need to cross over the protrusion. Meanwhile, Yuri is busy trying to take down the other robots when KKA inserts some sort of sedative in him. He wants to conduct a small operation. The siblings find a tunnel for Kyoma's car to easily go through. They catch a ride on the rooftop after helping him. Kyoma makes it clear that he is not teaming up with them and will destroy the coil once he finds it. Mira warns Kyoma about nothingness up ahead. She starts the countdown and conveys her anxiety about falling into a death-like state because her coil will stop working. She isn't even done with her sentence when they fall into nothingness. Everything goes black. Mira's body shuts down. Kyoma is on the brink of losing consciousness and the siblings are about to fall off the car. The tunnel and the nothingness finally come to an end after the heart-stopping moment. Kyoma warns them that they are nearing the source that destroyed the island. The only thing he remembers is that the facility is called Adrastia. They get back into the car to go through another tunnel. This one isn't affected by nothingness. Kyoma, though, is mentally giving himself a pep talk to face up whatever waits ahead. He has come this far to find out what really happened on that fateful day. He can't turn back now. He's about to step on the accelerator, but Loser jumps in front of the car, blocking the road. Kyoma gets out of the car to confront him. He tells Loser that he is certain they have met before because the man knows him too well to be a stranger. He is perhaps an enemy, someone from the facility. Loser isn't very pleased when he realizes that Kyoma actually doesn't remember how nothingness came into existence. His suit lights up with fire. Mira warns Kyoma that the man is surrounded by a powerful energy field. Upon closely looking at his suit, Kyoma sees numbers embedded in it. Mira's eyes spot the numbers on his legs as well. Kyoma attacks him, but the energy shield protects Loser from it. The latter claims that he himself has designed this energy shield and it's not the same as the one those robots have. Loser creates a boundary line with a spiraling fireball. He says that Kyoma doesn't deserve to go any further than that. He claims that the man has no memories of the crime he has committed and that is an insult to his dead wife. Kyoma is taken aback by this. He urges Loser to tell him what he knows, but they get interrupted by the sphere. Kyoma remembers seeing it somewhere and goes to touch its core. The sphere vanishes, but Kyoma falls to the ground unconscious. Past memories flood in. We are taken back in time. Kyoma is practicing with Squad A while Salva, with the help of his little brother, is planning to win back the country from General Jimo and his men, who have announced a coup d'etat, destroying Tower 60 in the name of liberation. The brothers go to the king, promising him that Salva will overthrow the traitors. The king ponders over it but decides to leave the country in Salva's hands. Meanwhile, in Tower 47, Squad A successfully clears it out from anyone planning to destroy it. They come across a video of a rogue scientist, Haruka Seemeyer, who was once Dr. Shidu's disciple but was kicked out for his extremist ideas. He has left a literal coil inside a dead staff member's mouth. The ones present there narrowly escape death. He leaves a message for war. Back in Africa, Salva, as promised, is able to take Isla back. The people cheer and rejoice. He is about to leave when Lashiti's quick movement saves his life, but she gets hit by the bullet aimed at him. He angrily turns his robot to the culprit, but coincidentally Luai is running down the stairs towards Salva and becomes the target of the fire instead. Tragedy strikes. The day of celebration turns into that of mourning. A meeting is arranged by New Tesla. The COOs of all the Tower Centrals are present. Dr. Shidu himself has been summoned for questioning regarding his ex-pupil. Inside a lab, Haruka holds some of the remaining scientists captive until they join him. One of them, Julian, refuses to give in. Haruka tells him that Shido is responsible for the creation of coils, but he has become out of reach. He is not even allowed by the executives to carry out his research the way he pleases. So, before they all get chained up like him, they need to rescue that man. This puts Julian in a tight spot. Back to the present, Loser and Elizabeth reach the Adrastia workspace for scientists. He informs her that this used to be where the scientists would carry out their experiments and used to be his old workspace. He is a scientist. Elizabeth is excited to meet his wife, whom she refers to as Mama. Kyoma's spin dart lies on the ground, and a hole is punched through the gate. They open the gate where the explosion had taken place years ago, but it's literal darkness. Nothing can be seen. Back to the past. Collins briefs the rest on Haruka. The man has been to 16 countries and left tracks behind. They all happen to point towards Easter Island. The island is home to Adrastia, a secret research facility of New Tesla. Kyoma is told by Collins to visit his fiancée because she needs an emergency surgery soon due to her worsened condition. He runs towards her room. They are talking when he sees Mira there. He starts seeing himself holding him accountable for what had happened to Miyabi, because he has seen this fate of hers over and over again. He had known that it wouldn't work. Kyoma ends up punching himself. He is then teleported to Salva's memory. They are both confused at what is happening when he gets teleported again. Kyoma realizes that he keeps falling into memories. The sphere appears. He starts hearing Haruka's voice telling him that he is currently looking at the raw essence of Dimension W. Haruka informs him that the memories are the key which keeps Dimension W connected to the physical world. He sees Miyabi appear in front of him, giving him something radiant. She tells him that she believes in the possibilities of him. Not only Kyoma, but also Haruka is taken by surprise. Back in the present world, Mira picks up a photo of Kyoma and Miyabi. She is reminded of when Mary had told her that her robot body was initially designed to save Miyabi. Even though the explosion and Miyabi's operation took place at the same time but different places, people believe that they are probably not connected. But Kyoma thinks otherwise. Those robots from earlier appear, snapping her out of her trail of thoughts. She promises to protect Kyoma. She makes one of them attack the other by controlling the body by inserting her tail. She knows that the robots are built to only use artillery and it's bound to fight. She waits for the moment it jumps to attack. Harry breaks the ceiling from right above it, resulting in the robot getting crushed by huge chunks falling. Mira is about to take out the robot's coil, but it ends up scanning Kyoma and starts running towards him. Mira rips off the coil. The robot shuts down, but she loses control over her acceleration and can't stop her body. The culprit being nothingness. Just then, Kyoma binds her leg, pulling her back. He has finally woken up, just in time to save her. He tells her that he had a nightmare. The siblings also join them. He shows them a device which was stuck to the back of his earlobe. It doesn't have a coil, and was most likely the reason he was stuck in that dream-like state. Kyoma is starting to remember things. He had encountered that sphere once before in Adrastia. At the time, the scientists were doing research on space development. They were working on developing a way to take the whole base to space with the help of a giant transporter. The sphere would appear for teleporting things, which means that Haruka is still alive. Kyoma hates his guts. He is certain that the accident wouldn't have occurred if it weren't for Haruka. Kyoma doesn't understand why the scientist had to take him to a dream state to tell him that the memories are a key. Mira recalls how during the Yasugami incident, dreams were a trigger as well. Mira hears someone coming their way and warns them. Turns out it's an injured Luai. The robot boy has been shot by the American collectors. They notice multiple electromagnetic pulse grenades hovering on the opening made on top of the tunnel by the siblings. The grenades fall with an electric discharge explosion. The Americans arrive, but the rest have already escaped. Outside, Jason appears like a meteor from the sky, wanting to fight with Loser. The latter instructs Elizabeth to step away. They start their face-off by throwing a strong punch. Loser realizes that he isn't the only one using numbers. Jason seems to know about his plan. He tells Loser that the man already has 4 numbers and plans on finding the 5th to bring them to Adrastia. Loser adds that the void of nothingness can be reversed with the help of that specific coil, and because of how dangerous it is, Dr. Shido had tucked it away, but Haruka decided to make it again. Inside the facility, the scientists are being controlled through coils. KK is responsible for it. Luai tells them that Jason had the same coil stuck to his head. KK appears, saying that he has read the file on Grendel's last mission. Kyoma is taken by surprise because how could a mere collector know this? The floor opens, making them all fall, but Luai quickly jumps to save them. Yuri is about to open fire, but Kyoma kicks him away. KK launches a coil-controlled Douglas Marks, his very own Squad A member, at him. The man has been a victim of the materialization of Dimension W, causing him deformity. Luai questions KK who he's doing the dirty work for. KK refuses to give out any names, but he does share that he has been ordered to keep everyone away from Ground Zero. He makes Doug fight Kyoma. The latter wants to release the man from this messed up state, but KK reminds him that his soul has already left his body. KK knows this because he was part of the accident investigation team back then, and had seen many bodies lying in that state when consumed by nothingness. Mira points out that Yuri's soul hasn't completely left him, so why not return him to his normal state? KK isn't pleased with her smart talk, and presses a button which sends them down a drain. Meanwhile, Kyoma is trying to knock Doug out of that state. He destroys the coil with hopes of getting his friend back. Doe utters the word boss, but KK burst his bubble by saying that that was what got engraved into Doug's mind before he succumbed to nothingness. The kids get flushed outside of the facility and their eyes fall on something shining brightly. Could it perhaps be that coil? KK claims that he has also read medical reports on Kyoma. The man had fallen further away from the void, which is why he is alive still. However, his memory of whatever happened there does not exist. Kyoma recalls he was in front of a giant teleportation machine. The sphere probably didn't transport him away from there because he remembers Haruka saying that humans couldn't be transported. The squad was supposed to secure Genesis's, the coil that they are after. Now what did he do with it? He doesn't remember. KK starts shooting Luai. He guesses the only thing that makes the kid human is probably his brain, which he is about to blow away. Even then, he has nothing but words of praise for his older brother. For him, Salva is like the sun. Luai's head ends up severing from his robot body. Kyoma sees it. He loses his ability to think straight. Miyabi's lifeless form flashes in his mind and he attacks KK with lightning speed, breaking his glasses and nose. Kyoma takes out his skewers to end him, but Mira holds him back from carrying out his plan. She tries reasoning with him that it wouldn't be worth killing the man even though he just killed a 14-year-old kid. She meekly utters that who knows how much of his life needed to be saved. Just then, Luai's guard robot lands with the kid popping out of it. Apparently, he has more than one body. Jason's body gives out. They can also see that shining light. Loser takes this opportunity to steal the numbers from his suit for himself. Meanwhile, Luai explains that his actual self is in Isla. These bodies of his are operated through a wireless link from Dimension W. However, he needs to stay conscious of his surroundings for him to operate. For instance, after he got shot by Yuri, he lost all sense of reality and couldn't snap out of it, which led his robot to commit suicide. That means KK didn't kill him after all. Kyoma is just glad the kid is alright. They let Luai know about the bug behind the earlobe. Lashiti takes it off from Salva. He finally wakes up. They leave the facility. Salva shortly arrives with Lashiti. Kyoma officially meets him outside of that dreamlike state. Salva devises a plan. He informs them that Dr. Shidu had demonstrated the possibilities of a phantom coil he called Genesis. However, he sealed that theory. Salva believes that the coil they are after is most likely Genesis. He wants it for his little brother because that coil possesses the possibility to make something out of nothing. Cassidy asks if the first comes first serves rule still applies. He gladly tells her that if the coil did turn out to be Genesis, then he'd double the price to $100 million. Upon hearing this, she zooms away into the sky for a head start. Her greed takes a toll on them all because her flight activates many robots to attack them. Luai gives them the green signal to sneak away while holding the robots back. Upon reaching the glowing light, they see that it's glowing so brightly because it has been materialized due to Dimension W's energy. One of the robots causes a hindrance. The siblings duo start attacking the robots. Kyoma drags Mira by the collar inside Adrastia. He informs her that whatever is up ahead, it might have something to do with her. Maybe Genesis is responsible for her memories from her stay with the Doctor to be unclear, probably because they have been wiped away as soon as a legal coil was used in its place, and the only thing left behind was the message to follow the coil. What bothers Kyoma is that Shido has used the word follow instead of find. Perhaps he subtly hinted for her to come here. The entrance to the main chamber opens, revealing Loser and Elizabeth. According to him, the accident took place due to the transporter going wild, which was being operated by his wife, Sophie, and Haruka. Salva figures out that Loser happens to be Julian Tyler, a scientist from Adrastia. He didn't expect this guy to survive as well. Loser tells them to look up. They are met with the sight of a giant gate made by the transporter, left wide open. With the help of numbers, he takes them to his memories to show what really happened. It starts with Julian attending Sophie's lecture and Dr. Shidu showing up with Haruka. He introduces them to each other. Sophie and Julian takes them to see the latest discovery they have made. It's a teleportation experiment. In front of them are 3 mice, alive, dead, and a toy. When they try to teleport the living one, it gets destroyed. The goal was for the mouse to be rematerialized, but instead it dies a gruesome death. Dr. Shidu says that this happens probably because when energy is drawn out of Dimension W with the coil, it doesn't consider the possibility itself. He believes that life and Dimension W are closely connected, and a possibility cannot be observed because then that would become a result. It can be explained, though. Moreover, humans know it exists because of their intelligence dot. Therefore, all life shows possibility, and with the coils they have at present, then they won't be able to perceive the wisdom that life holds. However, if such a coil does get created, then it would be the perfect one. They did work on one. Genesis. Loser confirms that it could control everything. The scientists threw themselves into researching it. Loser recalls that Haruka was quite invested in it, until one day, everything from his lab was confiscated by New Tesla, claiming that Genesis's development was quite dangerous. Dr. Shidu had also given his approval for the theory to be sealed. That day, Haruka's curiosity sent him spiraling into madness. Soon enough, he got a hold of the transporter and told the rest of the scientists that he had lied about wanting to retrieve Shidu's research papers with it because in reality, he had completed the creation of Genesis a long time ago. The man proudly shows it off to the rest. All he needed was to make some verifications and adjustments in the research. For that, he had to use the transporter. He had held people hostage inside capsules like some test subjects. His goal was to achieve human teleportation in one piece, regardless of how many lives were lost. Julian was held up by a robot that broke his arms. Sophie was completely at Haruka's disposal as he threatened Julian's life. Life after life was lost, all for the sake of his horrendous research. Just then, Grendel's force had barged in. They are suddenly thrown back to the present. A hologram device falls through the sphere's gate, revealing Haruka through the hologram. Loser demands where he is. He happens to be on the large fragment of Adrastia that was lost when the transporter went wild. His arm and Genesis are currently lost somewhere else. He tells them that Sophie had somehow made Julian teleport. She proceeded to switch up the circuits of 5 numbers, making the transporter go berserk. To make matters worse for Haruka, Kyoma showed up. He had snatched Genesis from his hands and disappeared with it into thin air. Haruka gets angry just by recalling the memory of Kyoma disappearing with it. The assumption can be made that Kyoma was transported to a smaller lost fragment of Adrastia, and he left Genesis there. Now only he would know where it happens to be. Kyoma still can't recall that part. Loser asks about what had happened to his wife. Haruka reveals an enormous octopus-like creature, saying that's what has become of her. He proceeds to clarify that the monster is made up of parts of Sophia and a bunch of other corpses. He has kept her heart as the core and her fingers because they have her fingerprint authentication, which the transporter uses. Haruka gives Loser 2 choices, either work for him or disappear into the other world with his wife. Upon hearing this, Loser claims that he will get the Genesis and defeat Haruka. The latter finds that hilarious though. Loser knows his weakness. He knows that Haruka is unable to close the gate of the transporter, or else that thing will disappear from the space he is stuck inside. Loser with 5 numbers is able to open another gate on his own. His arm goes through it and he manages to grab Haruka from the collar. However, the latter makes a fake tear-faced Sophie out of the monster's tentacles, distracting Loser and then throws his severed arm back to Earth. The numbers coil in it shuts down. Meanwhile, Kyoma is about to let his own demons consume him. The guilt he feels for only being able to save himself is eating him up. Mira reminds him that she knows him as a different, more determined man, not someone who gives up so easily. Kyoma yells for her to be quiet. He now remembers grabbing the coil with intent to save Miyabi in a better way, yet all that came out of it was despair and clinging on to a possibility which doesn't even exist. He ended up in a hospital bed with no memories while his comrades and Miyabi were dead. He declares that he doesn't have the will to keep holding on to possibilities. She shouldn't have any expectations from him. Mira says that there is something which has been bothering Kyoma this whole time. How the accident is connected to Miyabi's surgery, doesn't he want to find out? She knows that it has something to do with her because she was literally created so that Miyabi could have an artificial body. Kyoma takes off her glove, revealing that even the lines on her palm are the same as his fiancé's. Miyabi then says that Kyoma probably doesn't have any memory because the process of memory was shattered and Genesis couldn't recognize it. He reminds her that he is a human being and not some robot. Mira insists that they just need to fix the link to his memory. If done successfully, his memories will return. She has already made some adjustments to herself, which will have the same effect as that of the bug, and she has her experience of Yasugami Village, so she is certain this can be achieved. But first, she needs to put him to sleep. Just like the first time they met, she sends him into a deep sleep state with a hard slap across his face. Mira falls into his memories. They are all shattered. She gets on with putting them back together, but Haruka has other plans. He decides to track down Kyoma with his memories as well. Meanwhile, Mira's coil has turned red from the strain. She starts the process of linking back his memories. He begins to see flashbacks. Kyoma starts seeing the island disappearing and Miyabi's operation theater appears in front of him. The doctors are panicking because the operation has been successful, yet the coil is going crazy. She is on the brink of death. They start questioning if the brain wasn't enough to keep her soul intact. Miyabi comes to hold the coil with Kyoma and says something to him. She goes back, thanking him. He remembers they had made a choice that day. Kyoma snaps out of it. The rest of the collectors gather up. They make up a plan to bind Haruka with Kyoma's skewers. Loser points out that there is a cable spread around the island. They can use that to bind him. On the other hand, Mira is trying to get as far away from Kyoma as possible, because her coil is about to go crazy and she can't let him get caught in a Dimension W materialization. Haruka grabs her, realizing that she is a robot. He decides to use her limbs for himself because she can travel through the transporter. Kyoma joins them, telling Mira to get any suicidal thoughts out of her head because he won't let her sacrifice herself. He goes on to provoke Haruka by saying that if the man is so desperate, he should look into Kyoma's memories to see who Genesis got passed on to. Haruka takes the bait without realizing and dives inside Kyoma's mind. He is met with a broken Genesis lying on the ground. Even though Mira wasn't able to restore this memory, Kyoma managed to remember breaking the coil because Miyabi didn't want to heal with its help. Haruka starts screaming in rage and disbelief. His precious coil lies broken into pieces. The thing that they all are after doesn't even exist. Haruka completely loses it. His blood vessels pop out of his head. Everything he had worked for was for nothing. He keeps screaming that he will end everything by materializing the whole planet Earth, turning it into a barren land because what's the point if he can't even return back to it? The sibling duo is able to find that cable and Luai's robots wrap them around the monster. From one side, Loser opens a gate through which the cable pushes at him from the back and the monster gets pushed on him from the front. He starts getting squeezed in the middle. Kyoma tells him that whatever tragedy might strike a person, it becomes the source for new possibilities and new things to come into existence. He shouldn't feel any regret, and nothing that happened so far has been pointless. Elizabeth throws a spin dart with numbers towards Kyoma to use it on Haruka. He gladly launches it at the latter. A bright green light appears in the sky. Haruka sees Dr. Shido walks towards him and puts his hand on his head and they both disappear. Kyoma feels the pull from the energy produced by numbers and is almost sucked in, but Mira jumps to grab him. Her red coil is about to burst when Dr. Shido appears in her memory to replace it with another coil, saying that she now needs to learn about people's emotions. Things go back to normal. The void created by Dimension W is lifted from the island, giving way to life as flowers emerge. Loser dies from his wounds and the severity of using coils. Elizabeth mourns his death. Later on, everyone returns to their homes. However, Kyoma's adventure has only just begun, as he promises himself to keep being a collector because it gives him the chance to reach the limits of new possibilities. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.